Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the local media is going nuts that a new PCC is opening downtown, but it's not what they think. But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for a daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Everything is going so well with the border, with Donald Trump's handling of the border, with Tom Homan's handling of the border, that the left needed a martyr. They needed a cause. They needed to grab a gang member and say, he's just a Maryland man. He's just a Maryland father, and turn him into a martyr for the left. The left does this all the time. Oh, we need somebody to be our poster child for racial justice. Let's grab the guy who held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, who tried to use counterfeit money and was on drugs. That's George Floyd. This is what the left always does. And I think it's about to backfire on them horrifically. Securing the border is an 80-20 issue. Majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans go, yeah, get all the illegal immigrants out of here. Get all the criminals out of here. Get rid of all of them. And now border crossings are down to next to nothing, the lowest in decades. That goes for Republican and Democrat presidents. Why? Because they have done a good job securing the border. And that means Joe Biden did a terrible job securing the border. What was the big lie they were telling towards the end of the Biden administration? They were finally admitting that the border was not secure. They were finally admitting there was a crisis at the border. And they said, well, we just need to pass this massive spending package in order to get secure. But Donald Trump standing in the way of it. Yeah, it turns out all you really needed was a new president. So today, the Department of the Interior transferred federal land that's along the border from the Department of the Interior to the U.S. Army. What does this do? This allows the U.S. Army to say, you come on this thing, you're trespassing. And if you're trespassing on this, the Army gets to deal with you, not just the Department of the Interior. Here is the National Border Patrol Union President, Paul Perez, talking about this, because he had exactly what this means in practicality.
This is a really big deal, and I want our viewers to understand why. If we can pull up call for number one here. It's a 60-foot stretch of federal land that goes across the southern border. Doesn't sound like anything big, right? Well, now that the feds are handing it over to control of the military's previous mission was just supporting roles like building structures, surveillance. Now that this is going to be military land, they will be able to arrest illegal aliens for trespassing on that federal land, on that military land. And that's going to be a force multiplier because you'll have Border Patrol agents making arrests and now soldiers of the U.S. military making arrests. Just talk about how that's going to help you guys out there on the front lines.
Yeah, Bill, just like you said, in simple terms, it allows the troops that are out there to now go hands-on. And so in the past, we had to wait. They had to wait for us to get out there and go hands-on. And, you know, these illegal aliens would cross the border and try to become gotaways. So now it allows them to detain them until we get there. So that's a game changer for us. They bring a lot of technologies such as counter-UAS, counter-drone technology that we don't have. So it also serves as a deterrent to crossings, and it gets us closer to complete operational control. It also sends a message to the cartels that this isn't the place to cross, and those days are limited.
I mean, based on what you and Bill are describing, it seems like this should have been done a long time ago.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. President Biden had absolutely no appetite to secure the border. I mean, look at the amount of people, the millions that he let in unvetted. So this is the complete opposite. This is exactly what President Trump said he was going to do. He's fulfilling that promise, and this gets us closer to complete operational control of the border and allows us to secure America.
Boom. So you didn't need to spend more money. You just needed a new president. You just needed to let the Border Patrol do what the Border Patrol does. You just needed to have the will and desire to actually secure our border. Well, that's a lot of work for our Border Patrol guys. It must be pretty tough on them right now. How's morale among the U.S. Border Patrol? Here's Chief Mike Barnes, also on Fox, talking about this.
And look, I can tell you right now, the Border Patrol morale is going through the roof. We've had the handcuffs taken off. We're allowed to actually do our job, which is go out and enforce the law. Under this administration, they have literally taken the handcuffs off and allowed us to enforce law instead of policies that were created to contradict the law. And so our morale has continued to rise. I'm actually out in the field today. I was over in Rio Grande yesterday. Outstanding morale in El Paso today, visiting with the troops out here and the agents, and the morale is just through the roof.
And how's recruiting?
Recruiting is looking great. We're seeing some of our highest numbers ever. Really excited about that because, as you know, during the previous 4 years under the Biden administration, we saw a mass exodus from the Border Patrol, and we saw some of our lowest recruiting numbers. We're seeing the opposite. We're seeing agents pull retirement paperwork in order to continue staying in and serve, and we're seeing our recruiting numbers go through the roof. And from the clip you showed earlier, Dana, that I want to really drive it home. That very area that you were talking about in Eagle Pass was seeing an average of 3,000 to 4,000 a day. Right now, Eagle Pass, Texas, is seeing an average of 18 apprehensions a day and very few getaways, little to none. Some days, 0 getaways. You can't paint a better picture on the level of security we have on this border. It's making our border safer. It's making our community safer. One of the pictures you showed is a park in Eagle Pass, Texas called Shelby Park. That park's been returned to the citizens of Eagle Pass. They can now go out there and golf. They can enjoy their park. That's been returned to the rightful owners of that park because we've been able to make it safe and secure by reducing the total number of illegal aliens running around.
So everything's going better at the border. So the left needed a martyr. They needed a poster child. Because people like me see posts like this one, and every time I see one of these, I tag Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, and Washington Democrats, saying this is who they want to keep in Washington State. This is who they want to keep in the U.S. This is from ICE Seattle. ICE Seattle continues to arrest those who pose a threat to the safety of our children throughout the U.S. In Kodiak, Alaska, ERO Seattle, assisted by the Border Patrol and the U.S. Marshals, arrested Yushiho Yamashita, 24, a citizen of the Philippines, convicted of sexual assault of a minor. And this is the person they want to leave here. And I love that anytime you ask somebody who's a hardcore Democrat to answer that, no, of course, those people, no, law enforcement. Well, then why can't local law enforcement, cooperate with ICE? Well, ICE is evil. What? Hang on, you're talking in circles right now. You're literally not making any sense. I was on Newsmax earlier today debating that guy Ellis they have on all the time, their token Democrat who comes on to debate. I made a shish kebab out of him. It's not even fair because I said, why are the Democrats defending a gang member? So today, the White House released all the gang information on what's his name? The Abreu Garcia. Kilmer Abreu Garcia. So they finally released all the gang information. And this guy was a gang member. And people talk about due process. He went to two courts. Two courts said he was a gang member. That's who this guy was. I have a feeling we're going to find out more classified information for whatever reason, that this guy was probably an informant at some point. Something else is going on. That's why he had the hold on him here, and they didn't mean to deport him because of the hold. But at the end of the day, he was a gang member. In fact, according to new friend of the show, Assistant Secretary to the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, who we had on the show on Friday, and actually I just put that interview, a transcript of that interview up at KVI.com. She says when Garcia was arrested, he was found with rolls of cash and drugs. He was arrested with 2 other members of MS-13. 2 judges found that he was a member of MS-13. That finding has not been disputed. When arrested, he was wearing MS-13's uniform. And then we got this from the New York Post today. Alleged MS-13 gang member Kilmer Abreu Garcia, who was deported by the Trump administration to El Salvador's notorious mega prison, was previously accused of physically abusing his wife, who had been fiercely advocating for his release now. Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, applied for a protective order against her husband in 2021, saying he punched, scratched, grabbed, and bruised her, according to court records. Department of Homeland Security shared Vasquez Sura's allegations on X, saying there are evidence that Abreu Garcia had a history of violence and was not the upstanding Maryland man the media has portrayed him as. Quote, the MS-13 gang member is not a sympathetic figure. But then you've got Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, who flew down to El Salvador today to go see Abreu Garcia. And here's the funny thing. Mike knows this. When I go to Turning Point USA, when I go to the RNC, when I go to any of these things, I have the interviews I set up in advance. I have the interviews I roll the dice on. And then I have the random people that are walking around that maybe I can grab for an interview. Sometimes I go and I get a ton of scheduled ones in advance. Sometimes I have trouble scheduling them in advance, and I try my luck. And you can always tell by the show how well we did our preparation. Sometimes it's not on us. Sometimes just people have schedules, and it just happens. Now, the RNC, for example, we tried to get a lot of people, but everybody was trying to get a lot of people. And the ones we got, a lot of it had to do with young Zach running after them and corralling them and bringing them over. But we did fine at the RNC. If I was going to a foreign country to try and see somebody who's being held in a Supermax facility, wouldn't it make sense to arrange all that before you go down there? Senator Chris Van Hollen flies down there, and then he says this when he lands. Give a listen to this.
I just landed at the airport in San Salvador a little while ago. I'm now en route into the city, looking forward to meeting with the team from the American Embassy. And I do want to thank our Foreign Service officers and the whole team at this embassy and embassies around the world for all the good work they do on behalf of our country. I'm proud to co-chair the bipartisan Foreign Service Caucus that stands up for the men and women who are serving our country overseas and at home in the State Department. After that, I hope to meet with some high-level government officials from El Salvador.
Hang on. Hope to meet. He didn't end up meeting with any of them because he didn't make an appointment to meet with them. Me flying down to the RNC and interviewing the people who work with Newsmax and the Post Millennial is not a big deal because I know the people from Newsmax and the Post Millennial. I work with the Post Millennial and Newsmax all the time. Oh, I got an interview with Andy No. Like, come on. That's an easy thing to do. And yet here, these guys are losing their minds. This guy is talking about how he didn't get the interview. He didn't get to actually see this guy in prison. Well, he didn't set it up beforehand. He didn't get to meet with any officials. Well, he didn't set it up beforehand. So you got to go meet with the U.S. Embassy down there, and you're the head of the committee that runs the U.S. Embassy. Wow. Bravo. So you wasted our tax money on a PR stunt to fly down there because 5 minutes ago, nobody knew who Senator Chris Van Hollen was. To advocate for an illegal immigrant, for an MS-13 gang member, for a alleged domestic abuser. That's who you went down there to advocate for? That's the horse you're backing? You know, there was a woman named Rachel Morin who was murdered, who was from Maryland. And Chris Van Hollen never advocated for her. In fact, Patty Morin came to the White House press briefing room today. She spoke for 10 minutes about what happened to her daughter, who was brutally sexually abused and murdered by illegal immigrants. And the audio of that is so graphic. I said we can't play this on air because it is so descriptive and people have kids in the car. It is that descriptive. I would have played all 8 minutes of it, and it's over on social media on the Rapid Response Twitter account right now. You can find it there. It is that graphic. I'm warning you. I shared it on my accounts, Ari Hoffman Official, on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter, but I put before it graphic content because it is that graphic. However, we did clip the last few minutes of what Patty Morin said about Senator Chris Van Hollen as it relates to her daughter who was murdered by illegal immigrants who were gang members.
To have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledge my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this.
Now, Caroline Levitt did something after this that doesn't really translate to radio. She went before the media and she said, anybody have any questions for Patty Morin? And there is silence in the press room, because you can talk a big game when you're not talking to the person you're talking about. But then when a person's actually in a room who was a victim of all this, you want to try telling that mom that you don't think that Abreu Garcia was a gang member? You want to try that? Now, is there a legal discussion to be had here? Absolutely. 2 things can be true at once. And in fact, our friend Debbie from Bremerton, who called the show yesterday, sent me down the rabbit hole of reading all these different articles. And I told her some of it was errors of omission. Some of it was deliberately leaving out information. She sent me a lot of stuff, and a lot more stuff came out today since we had that discussion. If you want to say you want this guy to have his day in court, he had his day in court twice. Does he get a 3rd time? Okay. You want that so bad? Let's bring him back. I'm not blaming Debbie for this. I don't want to say that. I'm saying that for Debbie. For the Democrats who are hardcore advocating for this. You want this guy to have his day in court? Do you think it's worth us bringing him back to Guantanamo Bay to give him a terror trial to then ship him back to El Salvador? Is that worth the taxpayer dollars? I think that Senator Chris Van Hollen just used up the ticket we could have used for Abreu Garcia. I don't think it's worth it at this point. You want to make sure there's no legal questions? You're welcome to go through the whole dog and pony show. But then you know what happens? You open the floodgates for every illegal immigrant to claim, I wasn't a gang member. You can't deport me. Also, the reason the Trump administration is fighting this so hard is because if this guy gets brought back, everybody can claim the exact same thing. You're going to tell me the guy who allegedly was beating his wife, and the guy who was a gang member, and the guy who had drugs on him when he was arrested, and this guy with a history of gang violence, you're going to tell me this guy gets the 3rd chance, not the 2nd chance, the 3rd chance? No, absolutely not. Because, you know what? I didn't hear the Democrats stand up and applaud when Laken Riley's parents and Laken Riley was spoken about on that stage from the State of the Union. I didn't hear the Democrats stand up and applaud when Rachel Morin was being spoken about, or the girl they named the park after who got murdered. They didn't stand up and applaud for a park named after a dead kid. You guys want to get people back so bad? Edan Alexander, a Jew from New Jersey, is still sitting in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza as a hostage. I haven't heard any Democrats advocating to get him back except for a very small select few. Haven't heard Chris Van Hollen advocating for him to get back. So, you want to get back Americans? How about you start there? I haven't heard most of you praising all the hostages and all the prisoners that Donald Trump has been getting from around the world. I think his count is somewhere around 50 at this point in the less than 100 days he's been in office. But instead, what do they want to do? Make a martyr out of the MS-13 gang member. Tell you what, you may think I'm wrong about this. You think I'm wrong, and you think he deserves his day in court at Guantanamo Bay, you give us a call, 206-421-5757. Or if you have a theory on why the Democrats always make martyrs of the absolute worst people, give us a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, let's see what's going on at home, where PCC announced they're moving a brand new store into South Lake Union. Yeah, but before the Seattle media gets excited, you should hear what the store is going to be. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I love the way the local media and politicians are trying to portray PCC opening a store in South Lake Union as a good thing. Hey, look, it's always good when businesses come back. I'd be disingenuous if I said otherwise. Except our listeners know of my hatred for PCC. If PCC is so healthy, why does everybody there look like they're dying and gaunt? Why do they always look gray? Why do they always look sickly at the PCC? Why? Well, maybe it's just because there's only so much they can buy because they can barely afford the prices at the PCC, the world's most overpriced grocery store. But they had this location, this 20,000 square foot location in South Lake Union. They closed it because guess what? When you send everybody home from work and they don't work anymore and they work remotely, they don't work in person anymore, you don't need groceries in South Lake Union anymore. So they were open for a year, and they had really lovely drug addicts who would come in and steal their stuff, too, on top of everything else. So you put all that together, and they said, we're not doing this. Now, they have announced that they are reopening a third of the size before, and they are focusing on to-go meals, lunchtime fare type stuff, and basic grocery stuff that you might need on your way home from work. Things where your wife calls you at work, your husband calls you at work and says, hey, can you pick up this on the way home? Basic things like that. I wouldn't get it from PCC anyway, but sometimes you got to go where you got to go because it's close by. Now, the closure, according to Como News, was attributed to declining sales, which the company said were due to many of the people in the area continuing to work remotely. Additionally, Amazon's decision to withdraw from a plan to place 3,500 workers in Rainier Square contributed to the challenges faced by the store. All right, let me translate that little line there from Como News. You know what that means? Because of the the Jumpstart tax, which is exactly the same as the head tax, passed by the Seattle City Council in 2020, that put a tax on payrolls of high earners and not so high earners, because to live here, you got to be a high earner, put the tax on those people. Amazon had warned the Seattle City Council, if you do this, we are leaving town. And then they moved to Bellevue. And when they moved to Bellevue, not only did they take the workers with them, but the revenue declined as well. And that also affected all the surrounding stores that counted on them for it. That's your translation. So, can we all acknowledge what's going on here? They're opening a third of the size because they got a third of the customers, if that. That's how bad things are around here. And don't forget, the Washington State Legislature wants to levy the exact same tax on Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, even the Seattle Mariners. Anything in town, anything in the state they can tax, they will tax. And that's exactly what they are trying to do right now, which is why there was that tax rally in Olympia yesterday. How are things going on over at the Seattle city government? Well, things aren't so good for Seattle City Light. I know I make those checks out to City of Seattle. Isn't that run by our government? Oh, they're so good at their jobs, aren't they? According to Fox 13, a 2-year independent investigation to one group of Seattle City Light employees uncovered serious misconduct, including drinking on the job, sexual harassment, retaliation, city officials announced this week. So, according to the utility, numerous complaints about a specific crew responsible for an underground network construction and maintenance led to the hiring of a third-party investigator. The final report identified 40 employees as the subjects of 259 misconduct allegations. Wow, this is a lot like the prolific offenders in Seattle, where, 100 people doing 90% of the crimes in Seattle? The complaint spanned from 2017 to 2021, but it wasn't until late 2022 when a Seattle City Light employee and a union representative separately brought renewed concerns that the city ordered a full-scale investigation. The group under scrutiny was accused of drinking on the job, including at bars and work sites, with some employees reportedly intoxicated to the point of being unable to perform their duties. Investigators also heard reports of workers stocking alcohol in city vehicles and some employees feeling pressured to buy liquor for supervisors. Sounds like a party. Women who represent a small fraction of the crew reported being harassed by male colleagues. Well, if they're drunk and stupid and dumb enough to do that on the job, they don't sound like very good employees. Allegations include groping, being subjected to pornography at work, crude jokes, and in one case, a supervisor allegedly showed up uninvited to an employee's home after she felt pressured into sexual relations with him. Seattle City Light General Manager and CEO Dawn Lindell acknowledged the agency fell short Oh, that's very generous of them to say. Our most valuable asset is our people, but this investigation has shown that we fell short in our own expectations, and we have work to do. Workplace misconduct, harassment, retaliation, discrimination will not be tolerated. Sorry, lady, you tolerated it for what, 4 or 5 years there? So apparently it will be tolerated at Seattle City Light. I wonder how many other city agencies have similar problems. They just haven't been outed yet, or they're still under investigation. Hey, Seattle Public Schools, you still have that guy, Ian Golosh, who's been under investigation for over a year. You know, the guy that supported terrorism, the guy that failed a student for saying that men can't get pregnant. That guy? Yeah, he's still being paid with our taxpayer dollars on your dime. So when's Seattle Public Schools going to clean up their act, huh? Is that going to happen anytime soon? Let's head on over to the KVI studio text line. This one from the Warrior Injury text line says, right here, we're talking about the illegal immigrant here. It says, Steve from Shoreline says, a possible conspiracy theory. I believe the MS-13, Abreu Garcia's wife, may be under the threat of being murdered if she doesn't stick up for her creepy husband. Actually, I think it's a little bit different than that. She has a GoFundMe, and she's raked in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this seems like a money-making adventure for her. So this one here from the 253, hey, glad to have him back to face charges from 2010, 2011, 2012. He is in his right place. This one here from Robin Lakewood, Garcia had his days in court. Is Democrat Chris Van Hollen trying to run for president? Yep, definitely trying to milk some PR out of that. That's for sure. I mean, yeah, it seems like everybody, now that all these documents has been released, there were some people before, and myself included, who said, you want to bring the guy back to Gitmo for that terror trial? It's a waste of time and effort, but sure, let's do it. And now, once I've seen all the stuff they just released on his gang activity, yeah, this guy belongs in El Salvador, should stay in El Salvador. And anybody who did the same things he did should be on the next plane to join him. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. You know when you accuse somebody of doing something because you're actually doing it yourself? Well, Letitia James just found out what happens when you do that to the President of the United States. We've got the story for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Did you know that Joe Biden gave a speech last night? Apparently, he was talking about how Donald Trump is going after Social Security. No, Joe. He is making sure people are not defrauding Social Security like illegal immigrants. So, Joe Biden gives a speech, and almost no media outlet covered it. Why? Because if they did cover it, it would just be, we got the crusty Joe. We didn't get the angry Joe. I think angry Joe is gone for good. I think now all we got left is crusty Joe. And then he said this.
And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by.
Wait a minute. I thought he grew up in black churches. Wait, I thought he grew up in Hispanic churches. Wait, I thought he grew up in synagogues. I'm so confused I can't keep his lies straight. Luckily, we have our friend Mazemore who brings them up for a second. Listen to this clip.
I come out of the civil rights movement. That's how I got involved in politics, because my state has the 8th largest black population of any state in the nation. And that's what excited my passion and anger when I was a kid. And that's why I got so deeply involved in my community with the civil rights movement.
And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time and I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by.
Joe Biden is a crusty old racist. He has been from the beginning. Don't believe me? Here's a montage.
I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and nice-looking guy.
Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up 2 segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy. He always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done.
The senators that he is speaking of with such adoration are individuals who made and built their reputation on segregation. The Ku Klux Klan celebrated the election of one of them.
Using the word boy in the way he did can cause hurt and pain, and we need a presidential nominee and the leader of our party to be sensitive to that.
My Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this. I think the 2-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a little bit.
That's Joe Biden. That's who Joe Biden has always been. Some of those clips go back to the 1970s and 80s. That is Joe Biden. He hasn't changed. There's a story of 2 guys in a nursing home, and one guy is just, they both have senility, but one guy's cussing, because that's just kind of what's on his brain. And another guy is just repeating words of Scripture over and over and over and over again, because that's just the guy he was. Well, now that we have senile old Joe, we know exactly what kind of guy he is. Switching gears, the Trump administration hit New York Attorney General Letitia James with a criminal referral for alleged mortgage fraud on Tuesday. According to the New York Post, federal housing director William Pulte said in a referral to Attorney General Pam Bondi, as well as the Department of Justice, they accused James of having falsified records to get a home loan in Virginia while she was still serving as New York State Attorney General. The alleged false document said the James home in Virginia was her principal residence. When a home is labeled as one's principal residence, loans will sometimes have more favorable terms. Plus, then you're not living in New York, and then you're not the New York Attorney General anymore. According to the criminal referral, based on media reports, Miss Letitia James has, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire government-backed assistance and loans for more favorable loan terms. This has potentially included falsifying resident status for Norfolk, Virginia-based home in order to secure a lower mortgage rate and misrepresenting property descriptions to meet stringent requirements for government-backed loans and government assistance. Isn't that exactly what she accused Donald Trump of? Isn't that the exact same thing? But it turns out she's actually the one doing it? According to the referral letter, James bought a multifamily unit in Brooklyn, but consistently misrepresented the same property as only having 4 units in both building permit applications and numerous mortgage documents and applications. In addition to these, they said that James purchased a property with her father as a co-signer in 1983 as well as 2000, but that the documents labeled the pair as husband and wife. That one I'll give her a pass on. Sometimes recording people don't do the best job unless she's pulling an Ilhan Omar and married to her father/brother/ I can't keep track of this Democrat insanity anymore. I just can't. But do you remember when the first allegations came out against Donald Trump by Letitia James? Hang on. Let's hop up into the DeLorean. Let's fire that sucker up. I think we should go back to 2018, my friends. Yes. Let's go back to 2018. Back then, if you recall, the media was having a hard time believing her as well. NBC broke the news that she was planning these investigations into the Trump administration. And don't forget, at the time, a lot of people are saying, wait, is there a there? Because she ran saying she was going to get Trump no matter what. Even NBC was skeptical about it. Give a listen.
NBC News has exclusively learned that the newly elected incoming New York Attorney General plans to launch some sweeping investigations into President Trump, into his family. Letitia James tells NBC News, quote, "We will use every area of the law to investigate President Trump and his business transactions and that of his family as well." She plans to look into the following: Donald Trump's real estate holdings in New York, that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Russian official, any government subsidies that Donald Trump received, whether he's in violation of the Emoluments Clause, the Trump Foundation. How big of a problem might this pose for a president, and what kind of standing does James have to look into some of these things?
Yeah, great questions. It will potentially pose a problem for Trump, but there are risks here. It's a very ambitious agenda. The Trump Tower meeting, for example. In addition, there are tricky constitutional issues here that are going to divert her into the courts, and that will be tricky. And she's an elected official, unlike the other investigators. Yeah. There are constitutional questions about when a state official can go after the president, and she'll have to navigate those.
NBC was skeptical she even had a case, but she had run on getting Trump, and that's what she did, even though she didn't have a case. Man, karma's a dish best served cold. Let's go that route instead of saying the other word. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. The director of Home Alone 2 says he now regrets putting Donald Trump in his movie. What? What is this nonsense? We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. This is one of the craziest examples of Trump derangement syndrome I have ever heard of. Film director Chris Columbus, who directed Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, has said that Donald Trump's appearance in the 1992 movie has become an albatross and admitted he wished it was gone. This was during an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle. He said, "I can't cut it. If I cut it, I'll probably be sent out of the country. I'll be considered some sort of not fit to live in the United States, so I'll have to go back to Italy or something." Donald Trump is in the movie for 7 seconds. Anybody who's seen the movie knows what happens. Donald Trump walks into the Plaza Hotel in New York City after getting on the wrong flight and not going with his family. Again, worst parents in the world. He ends up in New York, and he goes to the Plaza Hotel because, sure, why not go to the one you saw the commercial for? That's the most expensive one. Well, he's only like 10 years old at the time. He asks where the front desk, where the lobby is, and Donald Trump is standing right there because he owned the Plaza at the time, and he says, "Just down that hall." Boom. Done. That's it. Now, Chris Columbus's version of the story of how Donald Trump ended up in the movie is we paid the fee, but he also said the only way you can use the Plaza is if Donald Trump is in the movie, so we agreed to put him in the movie. He said that in 2020. However, Trump said on True Social in 2023, "I was very busy. I didn't want to do it. They were very nice, but above all, persistent. I agreed, and the rest is history." The little cameo took off like a rocket, and the movie was a big success, still is, especially around Christmas time. He says, "People call me whenever it is aired." Now, 30 years later, Columbus put out a statement that I bullied myself into the movie. Nothing could be further from the truth. The cameo helped make the movie a big success. Just another Hollywood guy from the past looking for a quick fix of Trump publicity for himself. Now, Columbus told the Chronicle he intended to cut the cameo and wished he had done so, but Trump's appearance was a big hit with audiences. He said, "We screened the film in Chicago, and that moment came on screen. The audience went crazy. They cheered and they cheered, and they thought it was hilarious. I think I know a lot about comedy, but I don't, obviously, because I never thought that was going to be considered hilarious." Hang on. You said it was an albatross. You said it didn't help the film. But then in the test screenings, people liked it, so you kept it in? No, you're just upset because you don't like the guy's politics. So beforehand, I was ready to do a he said, she said, hey, let's look at all the movies that were filmed in the Plaza at the time. Was Donald Trump requiring himself to be in them? But now I don't believe Chris Columbus because he literally disproved himself. He says, quote, "Years later, it's become this curse." Oh, you don't like that he ran for president. It's become this thing I wish was not there. What's going through this guy's mind? He said I was lying. I'm not lying. He said I begged him to be in the movie, but there's no world where I'd ever beg a non-actor to be in the movie. But we were desperate to get the Plaza Hotel. But it's there. It's become an albatross for me. I just wish it was gone. So I went to Grok for a second, and I looked up the domestic box office numbers of the Home Alone movies. So the first one made close to, adjusted for inflation, $1.1 billion. That's a Marvel movie. That's Endgame, by the way. That's a big success. I looked up Home Alone 2. It made a little bit less, but you're still talking approximately somewhere in the world of 800 to 900 million when adjusted for inflation. That's a Captain America and the Winter Soldier. That's what that is. Your movies were huge successes. You just don't like the guy's politics, and you're mad. So you can't just say thank you. You can't just say audiences found it funny, so we kept it in the movie. I disagree with his politics, but that's it. It's not an albatross when your movie made 800 to 900 million when adjusted for inflation and was one of the biggest hits of the 1990s. Give me a break. TDS is real, my friends. When we come back, your chance to be part of the Golden Age of America during our Golden Age of America contest. Plus, you're going to need that money. We got the new slate of taxes that Democrats are going to be trying to hit you with. We'll have that for you, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, it seems like UW is trying to get defunded by the Trump administration. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to be part of the golden age of America.
The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be.
That is what it's going to be. It's your chance to win $2,025 and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card as part of our Golden Age of America contest.
And I'm asking you to dream big again, and this will be America's new golden age. We're going to have a golden age.
Exactly. The golden age of America, and it's so simple to be part of it, my friends.
The golden age of America begins right now.
It's nice that President Trump brought an audience with him to cheer our contest today. That was very nice. Normally, there's not an audience. Thank you for doing that, Mike, arranging that.
And
that
I'm
was a lot of
asking
work.
every citizen all across our land to join me in launching a new golden age for America.
Exactly. Golden age. So here's how you enter the golden age of America. All you do is text the word I'm going to give you, and just the word, and just once. Not your phone number, not your address, not any other information. Just text the word itself and only do it once. And you text it to the number I'm going to give you. So to join the golden age of America, all you have to do is text the word JOIN, JOIN, to 206-421-5757. That's JOIN, JOIN, to 206-421-5757. You have until 5 o'clock to enter the word JOIN. Text it to 206-421-5757. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil Vandervoort. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, danielsbroiler.com, to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and more. And also, President Trump, while we have you today, I just want to say thank you for joining us, but also, you were so great in those 7 seconds in Home Alone 2. I can't believe they would ever want to cut you out of them because you were so amazing in it.
Well, and thank you, Ari. You do an incredible job and such an important voice. Thank you very much, Ari.
You are welcome, sir. So moving on to other news around here.
And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in launching a new golden age for America.
Yes, golden age of America has begun. So, my friends, Washington State has made some really, really, really bad national news again. So, they're the top article in the Wall Street Journal opinion section. The headline is Taxes and More Taxes in Washington State. Olympia Democrats want to compound the damage from tariffs. Americans are calculating the harm to their finances amid President Trump's tariff barrage, and some states will be hit more than others. Take Washington, a major trading state, where lawmakers are proposing tax increases that would add insult to tariff injury. Hang on, let's just go through the list of the taxes they're considering right now. This is the new ones they just unveiled. You ready for these? Capital gains and estate taxes, they want to increase those. Oh, wait a second. Don't you wish there was an initiative you could have voted for which would have repealed the capital gains tax? Don't you wish we had a state Supreme Court that wasn't put in place by a whole bunch of lefties that would have said, yes, a capital gains tax is an income tax, so we're not going to have that? Yep, Senate Bill 5813 would jack up the capital gains taxes. Oh, by the way, when they run out of rich people's money, they're coming for you next. Also, you think the rich people are going to want to live here? They're all going to pull a Jeff Bezos and leave town. Here's another one. Business and occupation surcharges. Senate Bill 5815 proposes increases on business and occupation tax rates for certain activities, such as manufacturing, retail, childcare, and gambling. Oh, you mean most businesses, even childcare? So you guys talk about childcare being so unaffordable, and now you want to tax that also? The proposal also creates an additional 0.5% B&O surcharge on taxpayers. So now what you're saying is you want to tax businesses. You want to tax the people, you want to tax the businesses. How many people do you think are going to want to open businesses here? Property taxes. That's right. The one we've been talking about for a while, the one that was a big rally in Olympia yesterday against it. Senate Bill 5814 would extend retail sales and use tax to serve. So here's the thing. Basically, what it would – oh, that's a sales tax. Sorry. So the Seattle Times says right here, Senate Bill 5812 would allow for an adjustment of the 1% cap on state and local property taxes to a combined rate of inflation and population growth. So basically, your taxes are going to keep going up and up. And wait, this could be a good thing. If more people leave, then you'll have less people here and the taxes will go down, right? No such luck. Then sales taxes on services, sales taxes on nicotine, and they're going to say, oh, no, we're going to lower your taxes. No, they're not. They're going to hit you with a buffet of taxes. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, state lawmakers have proposed several new tax measures as part of the state budget. Possible menu includes a payroll tax, a property tax, capital gains tax, business occupation tax, a plan to repeal tax exemptions. This is all the stuff they want to do. All of this is meant to stand in for Democrats' original wish for a state wealth tax projected to bring in about $12 billion over 4 years. Democrats conceded on Wednesday that the wealth tax, which would create a tax on stocks, bonds, and other financial intangible assets for the benefit of public schools, is dead for now. They said there's definitely some disappointment among our members. That particular tool is not going to be part of our budget solution this year, said House Majority Leader Joe Fitzgibbon. Oh, so sorry you can't tax everybody. How about you just cut your out-of-control spending? This is a bullet dodged for Washington, and progressives should take a lesson before they resurrect it. The approximately 1% tax rate would have applied each year on the full value of financial assets over $50 million. That runs smack against Washington's constitutional provision requiring state property taxes to be uniform. The wealth tax was sidelined because Democratic Governor Bob Ferguson said he'd veto the budget proposals with it. He says we cannot adopt a budget with anywhere near the level of taxes currently proposed by the House and Senate. He was echoed by state businesses, including Alaska Airlines, Amazon, Costco, Microsoft, Nordstrom, and the Seattle Mariners, which wrote a letter excoriating the proposals as the largest tax increases in state history. Microsoft President Brad Smith told Como News that the wealth tax would cause people to leave the state. It would undermine entrepreneurship. It would discourage people from starting new companies in Washington state. It would be bad for the economy. So, instead, what does he suggest? Oh, they could send him a small trial balloon of a small wealth tax and see whether or not it could survive the scrutiny in state court. So that's what you want to do instead? Oh, sorry, we can't do the big tax. Let's do a little teeny tax and see if it survives the court challenges. You know what? A lot of people are going to say, screw the court challenges. We're out of here. And then they're just going to do what they're doing with the capital gains tax and expand it to you. Meantime, state residents and businesses will have to face a barrage of other new taxes. Washington's economy has around 40% of jobs in the state tied to trade. So the president of the Washington Council on International Trade said recently the last thing workers and employees need is more tax punishment from the politicians in Olympia. So hang on. I just want to make sure I got all this right. The Wall Street Journal is now calling out the Democrats in Olympia. Well, Ari, that's the Wall Street Journal. Don't you know they're a conservative outlet? First of all, if anything, the Wall Street Journal is center left. I mean, yes, I like the Wall Street Journal better than most papers, but at the same time, they print a lot of lefty stuff in the Wall Street Journal. Okay, let's go over to the Seattle Times because they printed this op-ed from Brad Smith, from Microsoft, and from Mike Seivert, who is the president and CEO of T-Mobile USA. Any business or family right now is making tough calls on their budgets. With an onslaught of rising costs and national uncertainty, we're all making hard decisions on cutting costs and limiting new spending on investments. On the other hand, some lawmakers in Olympia are considering another approach, proposing large spending increases supported by proposals for the two largest tax hikes in Washington's history. Unfortunately, the legislature's new budget proposals continue a trend that has already lasted too long. Olympia has been on a spending spree, digging itself into a budget hole that it now expects Washington businesses and taxpayers to fill. Over the past decade, our state spending has more than doubled, far surpassing inflation and population growth. The biennial state budget is now $72 billion. The last 4 years alone, it has surged to 40%. This record spending has been based on the doubling of tax revenues and using billions of dollars of one-time pandemic funds to pay for ongoing programs. And now the proposed budget for the next 4 years would add even more unaffordable spending. before approving historic new tax increases, Washingtonians should demand better results from Olympia for the unprecedented amount of money we're already spending. We all want to see the state prosper, but historic new tax hikes in the state will put the local economy in jeopardy for every resident. Job losses in our state, fewer entrepreneurs, a decrease in competitiveness and economic growth, and ultimately, as these work their way through our local economy, the result will be higher prices and less opportunities for Washington families. It needs to become more affordable to live and do business in Washington, not more expensive. We can't put our state's economy in harm's way with these unprecedented new taxes. As business leaders, we know that we have a responsibility to do our part to support a healthy community. This requires continued support for our local schools, transportation system, and nonprofits. Like everyone, we want families to thrive in safe, vibrant, and healthy communities. We know that this requires an effective and efficient state government. And to be clear, we do support sensible revenue increases, including taxes on businesses like ours, in order to support modest spending growth to accomplish the state's priorities. I'm sorry, what'd you just say? So hang on a second here. I was going to wait to call these guys out for where have you been this whole time, because Microsoft and Amazon and Boeing always support all the lefty causes and all the lefty candidates. But they just said the quiet part out loud. To be clear, we do support sensible revenue increases, including taxes on businesses like ours, in order to support modest spending growth to accomplish the state's priorities. So you know what's going to happen? This is exactly the kind of garbage Amazon said last time. Don't tax us or we'll move, but reasonable taxes we'll go with. And what'd they do? They ended up moving. And a lot of businesses were left holding the bag because they built those businesses around having an Amazon population. So Amazon gets these lefty candidates elected. They hit us with massive taxes, and then it takes down the businesses we create for Amazon. We create to service the people who work for Amazon. You know, Microsoft and T-Mobile and all these companies give tons of money to the Democrats. And yet, they're the ones who put these guys into office. They're the ones who elected them, knowing they promised they were going to raise taxes. Do you not remember what Senator Noel Frame sent out by accident to all the Democrats and Republicans? The Democrats' tax plan, which was tax everything that moves and just say the wealthy should pay their fair share. So for me, I'm kind of torn on this one, and I want your feedback on it. So as much as I don't want these businesses leaving, I kind of feel like these businesses made their own bed. Now they should sleep in it. Now, you and I can't leave. You and I are stuck here. We can't pick up and go. We're going to be stuck here with a worse economy, with bigger problems, with bigger taxes. We're going to be left holding the bag for these big companies. So do you think these companies, we should just say to them, go, and don't let the door hit you on the way out? Give your donations and mess up some other states. Stop messing up ours. Or do you think we should do everything possible to have them stay? Do you think it's a double-edged sword where no matter what, we're screwed? Do you think it's like Ace Ventura in that second movie when he gets hit in one leg with the spear and the other leg with the spear? Do you think it's like that? Because that's kind of how it feels right now. I can't believe I am defending Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, the Seattle Mariners. I can't believe I'm defending these companies. But if they leave, we know what happens. Our taxes go up. I want to know what you think. You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. The op-ed continues. With a population that ranks 13th in the country and a GDP that ranks 9th, we punch well above our weight. It's in part thanks to the thousands of companies, manufacturers, startups, and globally recognized brands that define industries, create jobs, and support ecosystems of supporting services. But our state has moved from having the nation's 6th best business tax climate in 2014 to the 5th worst. Think about that, from one of the best to one of the worst places in businesses in just a decade. Gee, what was going on over the last decade? Oh, wait, wasn't that when Democrats got control of the legislature and Democrats had the governor's office and Jay Inslee ran saying he wasn't going to tax anything and then taxed everything that moved? And you guys supported him. I looked up the campaigns you gave money to. Bob Ferguson, Jay Inslee, every Democrat in the state. By the way, I did reach out to Microsoft and asked Brad Smith to come on our show. Mike, we haven't heard back from Brad Smith at all, have we? No, of course not. Not even an email like we've gotten your email.
How about no?
Exactly. I mean, look, normally these guys go, oh, what would be a good time for you? Or I'm sorry, he's not available. They're ghosting me because they don't want me to tell you, hey, he doesn't have the guts to actually come on this show. The big CEO of Microsoft is afraid of little old local radio host? What's he afraid of? Then I'm going to say to him, hey, Brad, I completely agree with you. How many Democrat candidates did Microsoft back for office this year? I will go through every single one of them. I will pull up every single one of their filings because Microsoft had a hand in all of this. 100% they did. Just like Amazon had a hand in it last time. It's a double-edged sword. I got to advocate for these guys. I want Washington to be a great place to live. I want these businesses to be here. But at the same time, they helped make it unaffordable because they supported these Democrats for office. It's beyond frustrating. So what's their solution at the bottom here? We can find a sensible path. Governor Ferguson has taken the wealth tax off the table, focused on the state budget on addressing these uncertain times. We deserve better than to have our future spent and taxed away. It's time for our leaders to make responsible financial decisions that Washingtonians are forced to make every single day. So then why are you suggesting more taxes? Why are you saying that's just giving them the door opening? Oh, well, Microsoft's fine with it. Let's just tax everybody else, no matter how big, no matter how small. Microsoft is fine with it. Look at their op-ed in the Seattle Times, which is bonkers crazy. That's what they're going to do. That's what the Democrats are going to say. They've already said things like that before. Beyond crazy. And don't forget, these same companies put the money into the initiatives that were defeated last year. They put money into defeating the initiatives that could have stopped a lot of this insanity. They were the ones who did that. They are the reason you are paying so much money at the pump for your gas because people from Microsoft put a ton of money, like Bill Gates and all those guys, put a ton of money into keeping the Climate Commitment Act. These are the companies that did that to you. Do you want them to stay? Do you want them to go? Or are you kind of torn like I am? Give us a call and let me know. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Jeff in Olalla. Jeff, what's going on?
Well, I've heard all the statistics about the decline in a number of Canadian visitors to our country coming down to shop or travel or whatever. I go to Canada every year to go salmon fishing because they got liberal limits and our dollar's worth, well, right now about $1.40. Are people going to Canada this year? Are they going to be considered ugly Americans?
I have no idea. We should really find out, don't you think?
Yeah, that's why I'm calling. I'd like to see what the view is across the border.
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, we'll put that out to the audience. Guys, do you want to go up to the soon-to-be 51st state, or do you think that your tax dollars and your actual dollars are better off spent in the U.S. of A? Let us know on the text line, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Jeff, thanks for the call. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Dave in Tacoma. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, nice to talk to you again today. I got an answer to where this is going. In 1967, I believe there was a billboard that was out, and it was the last one out of Seattle, turn out the lights.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that, and I didn't know what it was about. Somebody had to educate me about that picture when I saw it, and you know there's been new versions of that going on around here, right?
Yeah, yes.
In fact, I remember during the head tax, it was the same billboard, just somebody photoshopped it to say, hey, the last one leaving Washington or whatever it was. They kept changing it to say different things. But I would have no surprise if that happened again. In fact, I think the most effective marketing somebody could do right now, if you rent a billboard that says last one leaving Washington, turn out the lights. Then you just write, this is brought to you by the local Democrats in Olympia or something like that. Just put that up there. It would get news everywhere, don't you think?
Oh, I think it's great. The sad part about it is all we have to do is look to California. They're 2 or 3 years ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly.
They've done.
Exactly. I mean, 1 million Californians came up here. The state which had the largest exodus cost them 2. I think actually it's up to 3 congressional seats. I think it's almost up to 3 congressional seats. The state with the massive exodus was California. A lot of them came here. A lot of them are going to leave after being the ones who voted for all of this. Dave, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, our education system isn't even any better off. Looks like University of Washington is trying their very, very best to lose their federal funding and pick a fight with Trump at the same time. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Right before I went offline for the Jewish holiday of Passover last weekend, somebody forwarded me the email that went out to the University of Washington. This went out to the entire campus about celebrating Arab American History Month. Now, first of all, if April is Arab American History Month, why didn't you send it out at the beginning of the month? Seriously, just a logistical question. Okay, let's say you fell behind. Because you know what? Fine. You want to have Arab American History Month? Fine. I don't care. My problem was if you dug into this thing and read through it, you would see that they are doubling down on all their anti-Semitism. Third paragraph down. Nevertheless, individuals, groups, and organizations across the Arab community continue to contribute to ecological and community resilience for all. For example, local events and groups like the Seattle Arab Festival and Salam Cultural Museum are building community, while intersectional organizations like CARE Washington and One America advocate and protect rights. Okay, the Seattle Arab Festival last year had people dancing terrorist celebrations. We have video of it wearing Hamas keffiyehs. They had booths that were anti-Israel booths at the Seattle Arab Festival. CARE Washington, they are one of the unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terror trial in U.S. history. Then what do? They have some upcoming opportunities around campus. 2 of them are anti-Israel lectures, one of them by an anti-Israel professor that works for University of Washington. This is what you guys are doing? So you're doubling down on your insanity? Does anybody fact check these things for you? Or are you just trying to get sued? Here's something else. University of Washington has banned the group Super UW, which is a Palestinian advocacy group, which basically is a Hamas advocacy group, from campus for vandalizing the Husky Union building to the tune of $50,000. You know what they were doing over the weekend? They had a booth set up on campus. Okay, the campus has told me many times it's freedom of speech. They were selling Hamas propaganda T-shirts, ones with actual terrorist images on them, ones with Palestinian terrorists celebrating on top of a tank on October 7th. They were also distributing material that was stamped with Hamas's logo. And in video that we're going to post either tonight or tomorrow, the people running the table admit they got it from Hamas and have no problem with the fact that they got it from Hamas. I will remind you that this is the same kind of stuff that got Columbia in trouble. At this point, is University of Washington just trying to lose their funding by allowing this nonsense on campus? Some of the material talked about giving them the correct narrative about the Al-Aqsa flood. That's the operation name for October 7th. One of the shirts said, "A flood is coming," referencing Al-Aqsa flood. When you guys talk about globalize the Intifada, do you guys mean what happened to Josh Shapiro's house, governor of Pennsylvania? Do you know on the second night of Passover, somebody firebombed the governor's mansion? Now, before you say, oh, it just hit the outside and charred it up a little bit, I saw the interior of the room it hit. My God. Okay, Josh Shapiro and I agree on very, very little. The guy is a Democrat. And today, the New York Post revealed that the guy who firebombed his house because he doesn't like what's happening to Palestinians, and he thinks Josh Shapiro has something to do with it. Josh Shapiro is more in Joe Biden's way of thinking of what's going on in the Middle East, and this guy firebombed his house. Tell me again, there's a difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. It's the exact same thing. Josh Shapiro has nothing to do with what's going on the other side of the world, and they firebombed his governor's mansion on Passover and admitted that's the reason they did it. Wow, how quickly that story just disappeared from the headlines. You're allowing terrorists to recruit on college campuses, and you're wondering why people are firebombing governors' mansions? Gee, can't figure that one out. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Sandy in Renton. Sandy, what's up?
Yeah, I was just thinking on the last person to leave Seattle or Washington they're not going to have to worry about turning out the lights because I don't think we'll have any electricity by then.
Oh, good point, Sandy. You're not wrong, because what's happening? You know, they want to bust down the Snake River dams. They want to ban all the oil. They want to stop all that. Yeah, you're 100% right. What's actually going to power all that electricity? Great one, Sandy. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, what other insanity is going on in the Washington legislature aside from taxing you? Julie Barrett from Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington will be joining us. Tell us about the latest attack on your parental rights. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Democrats are up to their usual tricks, trying to get parental Bill of Rights, and they're trying to silence any debate on it. They want to make sure that there are no sound clips of anybody who's in the House legislature, anybody who's in the House, anybody who's in the Senate, having any viral moments for calling out the Democrats for gutting parental rights, and none of the Democrats want to be held accountable for it. Joining us now to discuss from Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington, Julie Barrett. How you doing?
I'm good, Ari. It's great to be with you again.
Always a pleasure having you. We're almost done with our time. The session's almost over. So your gut feeling, do you think that the Democrats are going to go forward, pass all this stuff, and then send it to Bob Ferguson? And do you think he's going to sign it to take away parental rights, especially those of public school parents?
Yes, and yes. Yes. So both of the bills have passed out of the opposing chambers, and then they'll go back to their chamber of origin for concurrence. And I think that both of them will pass on that, and then they'll go over to Ferguson. Both have the emergency clause. I don't think he will veto that line item on those. I think he'll pass them as is, sign them into law, and, public school students could be operating under this law before the month is over.
Yeah, and I think here's something else. We were discussing this a little bit before we went live, is that I think that Bob Ferguson is going to sign the anti-parent stuff. I think he's going to sign the anti-gun stuff. I think he's going to sign as much as he can that makes the Democrats happy so he can fight the budget, because he seems to really, really want to be able to say, I fought against raising taxes. I fought to make Washington more affordable for people, because he knows he can't run for higher office without that.
Right. And I think he's going to look at the volume of tax bills that are out there right now. I mean, if all of those were to pass and he signed all of those into law, what a nightmare, not just for the citizens, but for the state as well. I mean, you're going to see a mass exodus because people just won't be able to afford to stay there. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to have to veto some of those tax bills and, maybe some of the line items in the budget as well.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going to have to do, because also here's something else. He needs his donors, and big tech is his donors, and big tech, Microsoft, Amazon, all these guys are the ones writing letters saying, do not do this. We will leave if you do this. And he wants to keep them happy. Otherwise, he doesn't have a war chest to run for higher office.
Right. I totally agree. So I think that payroll tax, if it passes, I think that could definitely be one that he would veto, because even mayors of, you had that coalition of mayors from like North Bend and Bellevue that came together and did a big press conference saying, please don't pass these bills. This will cripple our local economies. I think it would be devastating for the state of Washington, for businesses in the state of Washington, which is going to ripple down to the citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. What else you got your eye on, Julie? There's so much craziness here. I don't even know where to start, where to end.
Well, it looks like the Senate is gearing up to pass House Bill 1971, which you and I have talked about, but it hasn't gotten a lot of press this session. And that's the bill that would require doctors to prescribe a 12-month supply of hormones. And there's no age limit on it. So in theory, you could get a kid that gets their hands on cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, and they're given an entire 12-month supply of that. So it looks like that's going to probably pass today, which I think is just, especially when you consider it in light of these Parents' Bill of Rights. It's hard to say that with these bills, these anti-parent bills in education. When you factor it into that, that's just really scary, because these kids, in theory, could get their hands on it through a school-based health center, and parents have no idea that they've got this stockpile of hormones.
Right. And think about this. Some people go, oh, they're just hormones. They don't realize what it does to a kid's chemistry, especially as they're developing as they get older. And if somebody subscribed your kid a year's worth of weed or a year's worth of heroin or a year's worth of cocaine, you would realize how bad, or speed or adrenaline or any of this stuff, you would realize how bad it is and what it would do to the kid's internal biology. But here, because it goes with their woke values, they just go, sure, prescribe it. And I don't know any other drug where you get to do that. Even cancer medications, anything which is long-term illnesses, you don't get to do that. You still have to go get the thing resupplied every month, every 2 months, every 3 months. Even birth control you got to do that with.
Well, not anymore. That would be part of this, right? But that's part of what you're saying is you get it resupplied every, month or 3 months or however often because they need to check your blood levels. They need to make sure that everything is working properly and that you're not having any negative side effects. And especially with kids, that is critical with children who are growing and developing.
Right. And whenever they say, the science is settled on this, the science is definitely not settled on this. And if the science is settled in any way, shape, or form on this transition stuff, it's settled the other direction, which means this is a bad thing and it's not good for anybody. They just keep pushing forward with it. Where's the medical community? Are they just worried about losing their funding, losing their support from the Democrats? And they haven't said a word about this.
Right. I think it does come down to a money issue. Big pharma and the whole medical industrial complex, it's all a matter of funding. And, Planned Parenthood, of course, came out heavy in support of this bill. And then, of course, you've got the school-based health centers that want a lot of funding for that as well. So, yeah, it's a very crooked system, and it's all very corrupt and very anti-child, I would say.
Yes, the Planned Parenthood, which we know is really about making sure you don't have a family, not about planning anything about parenthood at all. Julie, if people want to subscribe to your newsletter, if they want to get all your updates, all your videos, all your content, what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way for them to connect with us is conservativeladiesofamerica.com, and then they can subscribe to our Substack, which is substack.com, Conservative Ladies of America. I don't know how you find it. Go to Substack and type in Conservative Ladies of America, and you'll find us.
It's pretty easy to find once you type in Conservative Ladies of America, Conservative Ladies of Washington. I always get the best stuff for them, which is why we have Julie on every single week of the legislative session. Julie Barrett, the Florida woman herself, from Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure.
We love having you. Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is.
Hold on here. Left on your dial.
Yes.
What kind of radio do you have? Do you have like a physical dial?
Maybe I should say who's in the studio with me right here. This is Jeff Podula from Northwest News Radio.
I'm like, are we
joining us in the studio
back
right
to the
now?
70s where you actually had a dial, had to turn the little red little line all the way to the left? I mean,
do you not like my intro there, Jeff? Are you upset?
I'm just
All
saying.
right.
In the digital age, like really left on the okay.
Okay, we still say use your we still say phone a person. Does that phone a phone? It's a computer, right?
It's still telephony.
Okay.
So I don't know. I found that odd.
Gentlemen, we all do radio on Check's Notes AM radio. Don't lecture me about antiquated technology.
Exactly, Jeff Podula from Northwest News Radio.
Speaking of,
yes,
I've got some great technology news for you, which is why I'm here.
Exactly right. Jeff is here to tell us about the digital age and how somebody did something really, really horrible, by the way, in South Lake Union.
No, not South Lake Union.
Oh, it wasn't South Lake Union.
No. The U District.
This was in the U District.
U District.
Okay.
Well, I mean, mostly in the U District, but there are 6 different locations where this has happened. But let me
hang on. Seattle Times is reporting fake news. They said South Lake Union. Go ahead, tell me what's up.
U District,
Yes.
South Lake Union, multiple locations.
Yes.
But when was the last time you crossed the street? Let me ask you that to start things off.
When I cross the street,
Yes.
I put it this way: I don't use crosswalks. I just run.
Do you just break the law no matter what you do?
Yes. Mike has seen it.
Jeff,
I've jeopardized Mike's life before.
This segment is already off the rails.
I thought you were a law and order Republican.
I can absolutely confirm that. Like, there have been so many times where we walk into the movies or going to get Starbucks or whatever. He'll just take off, like in the like not even at the corner, like in the middle of the street.
How did you survive into adulthood?
Because I'm from New York. We know how to do these things. That's why. You know, my brother was here visiting me one time, and he gets pulled over by a cop for jaywalking. And the cop goes, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "New York." He goes, "Have a nice day, sir." That was it. Tell us why you're here today, Jeff.
Well, normally when us law-abiding citizens, I should say, not the Ari Hoffmans of the world, press a button to cross the street, you hear something like this, right? Pretty simple, you know.
It's also for people who are deaf. Who are blind, who don't know that the traffic signal has changed. That's what it's indicating.
Yes,
And
exactly.
You can go in that direction.
But at 6 different intersections, South Lake Union, U District, all of that, someone hacked those signals and has left an AI-generated political message.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bezos. This crosswalk is sponsored by Amazon Prime with an important message.
So, I want to laugh, but at the same time, I don't. You don't have to do the commentary. I'll do the commentary. You're the news guy. I'll do the commentary. If those things are meant there for ADA access,
yes,
you are actually putting people in danger.
Yes.
And I assume a person who's ripping on Jeff Bezos is not on my side of, well, actually, that could really be anybody. But I assume that they're making all these tax the wealthy jokes and things like that. That does not sound like somebody from my side of things.
Please don't tax the rich. Otherwise, all the other billionaires will move to Florida, too.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like they're on my side of things. So with regard to that, whoever did this, whether they're on one side or on the other side, that's actually a very dangerous thing to be doing because a person now doesn't have that anymore.
Yes, it is. Now, the Seattle Department of Transportation says it is working to repair the signals at least 6 different intersections. That message that it was left goes on to say,
Well, wouldn't it be terrible if all the rich people left Seattle or got Luigi'd and then normal people could afford to live here again?
Whoa, I didn't hear that second part before. You're saying they're calling for Luigi Mangione? They want to kill these people? Is that what it is?
That's what they said. I'm just playing the audio.
Holy cow. All right. Yeah, I stopped a little too early when I ran out of here during commercial to hear that. I didn't hear the second part of this thing. So that's awful. I mean, that's literally calling for people to die. That's flipping terrible. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of stuff that's playing. So how'd somebody hack the signals? Do the police have any idea?
That's what's interesting. It hasn't been, at least the Department of Transportation hasn't said how they've been hacked, whether they know or don't. I mean, this is real early on. This is only the last couple of hours that this has happened. So at this point, they're investigating. I'm guessing they probably don't know how they were hacked at this point, let alone who did it.
Well, so what's interesting is that they're in different locations. Are they all connected together somehow, or is that you have to do them one by one? I would assume these things are not networked together.
I'm not a traffic engineer, so
right.
I don't
would assume
imagine.
they're not networked together to go beep, beep, beep. I would assume that. I would assume changing their signals as easily in Die Hard 2 as opposed to the outer marker, where it goes beep, 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 and you just want to tell it to talk to the airplanes instead. I assume that's something pretty easy to do. The technology's been around since the 90s.
That's a pretty deep cut there.
Yes.
That's a pretty deep reference.
That's what we do on the show here,
But
Jeff.
and of all, in that franchise, of all of them, you picked Die Hard 2?
Well, that's where the reference is from.
I get it, but still.
Also, that's the one with the Annex Skywalker.
Exactly. And the T-1000, who is a terrorist before he gets killed and comes back to life as a robot, who's going to kill John Connor. Obviously, you know these things, Jeff.
I do know these things.
Well, anyway, do me a favor and please keep us updated on this. We want to know about the police reports. Jeff Pogela from Northwest News Radio. You can catch him over at our sister station, AM 1000.
That's me just pressing the button
Thank
to leave
you,
the
Jeff.
studio.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including the latest insanity from Harvard going head-to-head with the Trump administration. We'll give you details on that when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. But before we get to any of that, let's do some true crime. We haven't talked about that in a while. So the FBI here in Seattle, Special Agent in Charge Mike Harrington, had a briefing for reporters yesterday on the Tesla explosion in Lacey, Washington. Now, what he said regarding this explosion is that they are looking for a gray Tesla Model X 2016 to 2019 that was parked at the charging station during the arson incident. So hang on a second. I want to make sure I got this right. Somebody who drives a Tesla is the prime suspect in blowing up a Tesla charging station? This reminds me of the May Day protesters that show up every year, the anarchists, and that picture from years ago, long before the autonomous zone, before the Summer of Love, where they went to downtown Seattle and you had some kid smashing in the window of the Nike store with a Nike sneaker. He's wearing the Nike sneaker and kicking in the window. It reminds me of the pictures of the big protests against capitalism, where they're all got their iPods and iPads and their Starbucks. But, we hate capitalism, right? I mean, are we going to find out that the lefties drive EVs? Oh, yeah. This is something that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Let's see what else is going on around here, because the news is absolutely insane. So this story has a tragic, tragic ending. There's been an 82-year-old woman who's been missing in Washington. There's a guy who's a person of interest who is in custody right now, but authorities found her body in really, really tragic circumstances. Como News has a story for us.
Search for an elderly woman in Thurston County who disappeared under suspicious circumstances. Thanks for joining us. I'm Preston Phillips. Authorities found the body of Marcia Norman buried under a shed in Olympia, encased in concrete. Como's Jackie Kent live tonight in Seattle with why her handyman, Jeffrey Ziz, is a person of interest in this case. Jackie?
Well, Preston, police believe Ziz was the last known person to see Norman. This case started nearly 2 weeks ago when her family first reported her missing. They said they hadn't heard from her in days. Now neighbors tell me they hope the fact that officials found her remains can hopefully give her family some closure. Nearly 2 weeks after Marcia Norman was reported missing from her Thurston County home, heartbreak for neighbors. Learning detectives found the 82-year-old's body in Olympia.
I'm horrified that it happened. I think I really wanted it to be a miscommunication somewhere along the way.
Detectives report interviewing witnesses and collecting evidence to ID this man, Norman's handyman, Jeffrey Ziz, as a person of interest. They claim he had dinner with Norman on April 1st and was the last known person to see her.
If it was him, you need to be careful, who you hire and what kind of relationships you have with people that work around your home and are in and out of your property.
That's the right name, Your Honor.
On April 8th, Ziz appeared in a Montana courtroom, but not for this missing persons case. Detectives say he fled to Missoula, a violation of a previous sentence for a child molestation case.
If you take a look at that warrant, is requesting that you be held on no bond.
Thurston County detectives say they discovered Ziz built a shed in Olympia a day after Norman was reported missing. They excavated the ground beneath it to find human remains partially encased in concrete. Once the coroner's office confirmed those remains to be Norman's, Ziz was extradited to Washington.
This is very unsettling for us. For 82 years old, I thought she was remarkably, with it and bright.
Ziz remains behind bars at the Thurston County Jail for the sentencing violation warrant as the investigation into what happened near Tenino continues.
Now, what Como News left out of that report is the other charges that were pending against this guy Ziz. So, let's go through a little bit more of these details of 58-year-old Jeffrey Ziz. He fled the state, a move that violated sentencing conditions pertaining to an unrelated sex offense. So, what did he do exactly? In 2022, he pleaded guilty to charges of child molestation, communication with a minor for immoral purposes. He turned himself back in October of 2021, admitting to numerous sexual assaults involving children known to him through family connections. Fox 13 Seattle confirmed that there is an outstanding warrant for Ziz's arrest in Thurston County on 2 counts of second-degree child molestation, 1 count of communication with a minor for immoral purposes via electronic communications. What was he doing out of jail? Why was he not in jail? Why was this guy not in custody? They knew about him on October 21st. This guy should not have been loose. Some people have a lot of things to answer for. Is this one of these people where we just feel bad for you for whatever reason? So they just keep releasing them and releasing them? There are some people that need to be kept away from society. And it sounds like this guy is one of them. Yeah, child molester, convicted child molester. And then apparently there's more cases where he was accused of being a child molester. Why is he allowed to walk the earth? I kind of like the Idaho way that they handle these things. Let's see what else is going on around here. So in Everett, Washington, 23-year-old Lorenzo Smith appeared in court on Monday after being accused of attacking 2 baristas in Everett. Are we back to this again? Is the same nonsense happening again? Smith allegedly attempted to force himself on employees at the Ladybug Espresso and Steamy Shots Espresso, both located along Evergreen Way. The first attack happened at the Ladybug Espresso around 1 p.m. on Sunday. According to police, an employee reported a man trying to force his way into the stand and assault her. She managed to escape, and the suspect ran from the scene. Criminals are emboldened when there's not enough police around. And the problem we have, and it's not unique to Seattle, the problem we have around here is not enough people are going into law enforcement. We have the lowest amount of officers per state, per capita, out of the entire U.S., and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I know that Bob Ferguson is talking about this big plan to fund all these police officers, but I'm pretty sure that thing got cut along with his other cuts. So that's not going to change anytime soon. And on top of that, we've proven from Seattle, it's not a money thing. If it was a money thing, we could have solved it because they've allocated pay increases here in Seattle to try and get officers back, but it doesn't seem like it's doing the trick. And meanwhile, these crimes just keep continuing. Here's another one for you. In Bellevue, Washington, according to Como News, a 43-year-old rideshare driver was arrested and accused of groping a teenage girl during a drive to her home. This guy, who's a Kenyan national, is in the U.S. on a work visa. His pregnant wife and 5 children live in Kenya. He is charged with indecent liberties and unlawful imprisonment. The incident happened on the morning of February 17th when the 16-year-old victim took a lift home from her boyfriend's house in SeaTac to her home in Bellevue. Charging documents say this guy was her rideshare driver. Court documents from the King County Prosecutor's Office say that when the girl went to get into his car, she accidentally opened the front passenger door and saw the driver's belongings on the seat. He moved them and said it was okay for her to sit there. He chatted with her for most of the ride back, and when they got closer to her Bellevue home, he said, "Do you kiss and tell?" Then she laughed it off, and he asked if she could kiss him. It then got worse from there, and I'm going to leave out the gross details, but after pushing him off, she managed to get out of the car and report what happened. Bellevue police are now looking for anyone who remembers experiencing unwanted sexual advances by this driver during a rideshare service, and they said he drives a Mitsubishi with Washington plates. Potential victims are asked to call 911 or the department's non-emergency line at 425-577-5656. This is a horrifying thing. And I have a question. How many background checks were done on this guy before he got his work visa? Does he have a history of this stuff back in Kenya? Did anybody check it out? Because it sounds like this guy has a history of doing this stuff here. And yet, what was he doing in the U.S.? He's here on a work visa. Should he have been here on a work visa? By the way, Katie's Daviscourt from the Post Millennial had a breaking news update earlier today. Attorney General Nick Brown has not provided the House Judiciary Committee, run by the Republicans, with the requested documents pertaining to the state's sanctuary laws. Brown was ordered to submit all incidents where local and state jails refused to honor ICE detainers since 2023. Let's take this rideshare driver for a second. So let's assume for a minute he gets arrested for all the details, for all the crimes. Let's say there's more of these crimes and he gets arrested. And then they realize there's something with this guy's ICE information. There's something with his immigration visa, or he violated it by committing these crimes. ICE is going to want to come and pick this guy up. Are the Bellevue police going to be not allowed to comply? Are they just going to release him so he doesn't get into custody of ICE? Is Washington State going to advocate for this guy? It's craziness, absolute craziness. The Washington Attorney General claimed that his office does not possess these records. Wait, you don't have records of when they refused to honor ICE detainers? I have those records. It says so anytime I look up a case, and it says ICE filed for this, but the guy was released anyway. Those records are really easy to come by. Brown came under investigation by Congress after he filed a lawsuit against Adams County Sheriff Wagner for assisting ICE arresting criminal illegal aliens, which violates the state's sanctuary state laws. So here were the responses that Brown had to each request, okay? So request number 1, all documents and communication referring or relating to investigation to local law enforcement entities in Washington for the cooperation of federal immigration officials for a period of January 1st, 2023 to the present. He says his response was the material related to our investigation are privileged under multiple doctrines. So here we go. Privileged. This is the same nonsense that Bob Ferguson used to do all the time in my public disclosure. Everything's privileged. Everything's attorney-client privilege. We can't give you any of that. Request number 2, all documents and communication referring or relating to state and local law enforcement agencies' interaction with ICE and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol for the period of January 1st, 2023 to the present. He says, this request is overly broad. We do not possess documents reflecting other state and local law enforcement agencies' interaction with ICE and the Border Patrol. In our response to request number 1, we have included communication between Adams County Sheriff and ICE, which Adams County produced to our office. We have also published guidance on the Keep Washington Working Act. By the way, that's what they call the state sanctuary law. Policies adopted by law enforcement frequently ask questions on our website. So you gave them a link to the website. That's what you gave them, as opposed to the information they asked for. Request number 3. The number of ICE detainers that Washington state and local law enforcement officials declined to honor from January 1st to 2023. We do not possess this information. That's it. No, we just don't have it. Request number 4, the amount of taxpayer funding used to investigate and pursue legal actions against the Adams County Sheriff's Department. They said this information is not readily available. You guys don't know how much money you've spent on a lawsuit so far? You don't know. So here's what they write instead. In 2024, which is before Nick Brown was the Attorney General, the AG's office brought in more than $156 million in settlements and penalties. These funds were largely spent on restitution and paying for the operations of civil justice enforcement, including investigation and litigation against Adams County. You don't track billable hours? What law firm in the country doesn't track billable hours? Oh, and by the way, if you don't have records tracking how much you've spent on this, how can you ever do a budget that you submit to the legislature? No wonder our spending's out of control. You lawyers can't even tell me what your billable hours were in the Attorney General's office. It's insane. What are they trying to do? Dodge. Let's see Nick Brown before the House Judiciary Committee. I want to see that guy in the hot seat. You know what I want to see better yet? Bob Ferguson right next to him. You know why? Because who was the Attorney General during most of this fun? Bob Ferguson. Haul them both in front of Congress. That'll be fun to watch. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up, man? It's not just should we haul, the Attorney General before Congress. We should also haul the UW Board of Regents and Governor, Bobby Ferguson, and ask them where the hell are they in dealing with this anti-Semitism at the UW and other places. I mean, dude, why is only Harvard and Columbia getting hit by the Trump admin? They should be.
Well, hang on a second. One slight correction. I agree with everything you said, but one slight correction. As I mentioned last week, was that they're almost done with the Ivy League. I assume they're going after the state colleges after they finish the Ivy League, but there's only so many of these cases you can do at a time, and they're going to have to fight all of them because all these guys are fighting back, especially Harvard, for example. When you have a $53 billion endowment fund, you have the resources to fight back.
Yeah, but it's time. It's time to make an example of UW. I mean, for instance, their Board of Regents meetings are not on YouTube. And it's been a constant battle trying to get them to do anything to deal with anti-Semitism, and we barely got them to not divest from Israel. And I think that, the bare minimum isn't good enough. I think UW would be a great poster child for the Trump admin to try to make me a Republican.
I think I completely agree. And Joe, if it makes you a Republican, the whole effort was worth it, my friend. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I'm kind of hoping the same exact thing happens to you, Dub. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show, my friend. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And with all the crime we've been discussing here in Washington, on Monday, Washington State Senate passed a bill that would require gun buyers to get a permit and take live fire training. Now, the question is, how long is it going to take to get that permit? We know that the systems here for background checks were down for weeks earlier in the year. So how long is that going to take? Also, do you have to get a permit for any other constitutional right that you have? I don't think you actually need to do that. Why is it only guns? Now, any responsible gun owner, which is the majority of legal gun owners, are going to say, well, yeah, I go to the range all the time. That's what I do. When people tell me, Ari, what gun should I get? I go, you're asking the wrong question. You should be saying, I'm going to go to the range, I'm going to try out a bunch of guns and get the training, and then I'll know what kind of gun I am comfortable with. But this thing here, do you think this is going to stop the gang members? Do you think this is going to stop any of the criminals that we've discussed in the segment so far? You think the criminals are going to go, well, I was going to do an armed robbery, but, I don't have a permit for this gun, and I don't have the live fire training exercises. All it's going to do is put more regulations on you and me. And what if somebody's in a real life-threatening situation? They need to get a firearm in the quick because their family is under threat. I mean, that's what happened with me when my family got death threats. I had to get a gun super quick. I got the training to go with it, but I'm glad I had my concealed carry long before that because I figured it was good to have just because I'm a relatively new gun owner, and I needed it because of threats on my family, threats on my life. That's a step I never thought I'd have to take, and thank God the Second Amendment was there when I needed it. So the question is, what do you think of this insanity? Because I think this is putting restrictions on the Second Amendment. I think there's no way this is going to hold up on court. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, as our friend Transit Joe was talking about, Harvard is in the crosshairs. Trump administration made a big announcement about the next steps they're taking against the Ivy League institution. But before we get to that, time for Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45 is your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason I always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I do appreciate the person over on the text line who, before when we had Jeff Pogela on, said, Ari, you're always left on my dial. So that was very kind of you. Thank you very much. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Steve in Port Orchard. Steve, what's up?
Hey, Ari, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. The sun is shining. I'm happy.
The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. But what's not very beautiful or pretty or even very nice is the attack on gun owners. Now, if you read, I'm sure you have, if you study it closely, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. That not only means to keep the people safe and to maintain a secure state from the government, but it also means to guarantee the security of our state, which is not one state or two states, it's all of the states. The United States is the state. Now, one reason, I'm getting off track a little bit, but one reason that nobody has tried to mess with us on this property for a long time is because they go, man, you know how many of those people over there have guns?
Yeah.
A lot of us have firearms. Now, I'm not going to call them weapons because I got a box full of firearms. None of them is a weapon. You want to see some weapons? I'll open up my kitchen drawer. I got forks. I got butter knives. I'm serious.
No, you're not wrong. I don't see them. I don't see them restricting Cutco. Hey, let me ask you a different question. Totally off topic, but on topic at the same time. So Bob Ferguson's got his whole thing he's trying to pass about militia groups. You think that's going to hold up too? Because that's a constitutional issue as well, as I see it.
I think that as long as Bob Ferguson is in the position and he surrounded himself with like-minded individuals, we, the people, don't really stand much of a chance against that. But, militia groups is right in there.
Yeah, I think I think it's clearly the two things he's going to be targeting. But let me ask you this, Steve, because you're 100% right on everything. Yeah. But let me ask you this for a second, all right? Do you think that any of these new restrictions have any chance of bringing down crime?
Well, let me answer that with a question. And I know what you're going to say, and this is the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever hung on their front door of their business. No firearms allowed.
Exactly, because then you just say, we're a target. Come get us. We're a target.
Look, if I've got evil on my mind and I'm going into this place to do some harm to somebody with a firearm and I see that sign, I'm not going to say, oh, man, I'm not supposed to take my gun in there. I better turn around and go put it back in my car.
What you mean it's not? You mean it's not an invisible force field that protects your school and your business? I thought that's what those signs do.
I hope you're sitting down. I know it's kind of a shock. It's a hard thing to have hit you like that, but yeah, that's right. Now dig this. I'm getting to infringe. In the word infringe, INFRINGE. Second Amendment guarantees us that our right to own and bear a firearm shall not be infringed. It doesn't mean, hey, if it's on a weekend, you can do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's okay to. It says shall not be infringed.
Well, let's remember this. Here's the problem. And Bob in Portland texted this in. He goes, it won't hold up in court, but it'll take a decade before it gets to SCOTUS. Meanwhile, we, the people, will be disarmed, and people will die while they wait to get a gun. And Jeff from Kent says the new anti-Second Amendment law, if it goes to the Washington Supreme Court, of course, it'll stand up. It'll have to go to SCOTUS. But remember, we're still fighting all the cases from the last time Bob Ferguson did this, which was years ago. Steve, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Marty in Tacoma. Marty, what's going on?
It's kind of interesting when I listened to all this feedback. I was actually down and I actually testified in both the House and the Senate hearings. Under the circumstances, everybody with a D on that side of the aisle voted 100%. So it was, one of those situations where what can you do? You know, if you look at the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment in the state of Washington is actually more stringent than that of the federal, and yet these people down there in Olympia just feel like, you know, nobody should have it. What's interesting or what's ironic was the fact that years ago I lived in the north end of Tacoma, and one of my neighbors was the woman who is now the Speaker of the House, and she's the one that makes the decision as to what goes down on the floor for a vote. And we used to meet at the Safeway gas station and stuff like that, and all she could do was say, nobody deserves to have a gun. Nobody deserves to have a gun.
I sure noticed there's a whole lot of security guards around the Capitol, a whole lot of Capitol Police, a whole lot of Washington State police officers down there, security guards and all that. And I noticed anytime Bob Ferguson goes somewhere, he's got security with him, right?
Oh, I know what's ironic is the fact that you look at the number of people that were being bussed down there from Seattle, all these antis, they're wearing their own, they've got shirts that are all patterned to, anti-Second Amendment. They bus them down there by the truckloads and stuff like that. They give them their lunch. They have a pre-planned or a pre-written speech and stuff. They get in front of the hearing room and stuff like that, and they read that stuff off. It's just a bunch of garbage. It's rhetoric that makes no sense. But, they're basically paid to go down there and do nothing but, feed rhetoric.
Yeah, that's the same thing Kshama Sawant used to do with the Seattle City Council. It was the exact same thing. They would bring in all these homeless people, give them a T-shirt, give them a sandwich, and pack the room. Or they would bring in their activists from the college campuses. Marty, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate you testifying before the legislature. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Steve in Tacoma. Steve, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. What's going on, man?
Hey, this thing got me and my wife fired up about this permit to buy a gun, because not only does it affect new gun owners, when your permit expires, they're saying you have to do the live fire training also. So that affects you also.
Oh, charming. That's great. So now I got to deal with this. I mean, look, anytime I would have to buy a gun, I'd have to go for this again. I mean, I go all the time, so I'm not that worried about it. But at the same time, I think about the people who need a gun in a bad situation, and they got to defend themselves. But I also think about the fact if they can infringe on this constitutional right, they can infringe on any other right they want. Steve, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, was there a local fundraiser for terrorist groups? And were Democrat politicians in attendance? Our next guest is going to fill us in because guess what? She managed to infiltrate it, and she's got the story for us. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, a lot of people sent me this article from the Middle East Forum, written by their writer and researcher, Susanna Rose. It's about an event at the Mercer Island Community Center, which was supposed to be just some kind of fundraiser for stuff in the Middle East, like stuff for Palestinians. And it turns out it was a full-on support of terrorism event happening at the Mercer Island Community Center. And what's mind-boggling to me is my kids go there for events, and this is the other kind of event that was happening there. Joining us now to discuss what she saw when she was there, Susanna Rose, who's a writer and researcher with the Middle East Forum. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm very happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So why don't we start from the beginning? Why were you at this thing? Were you just there for another event and then you happened to walk in on this thing, or were you invited? Did you sign up for it because you saw the advertising online? What was this?
Yeah, so the activities of the organization at question, which is called the Reach Education Fund, or I'll refer to it as REF for short, came onto the radar of my colleagues at the Middle East Forum within the past few years. And as they started digging into them and their activities, I noticed that they were going on a speaking and fundraising tour around the United States, and that there was an upcoming event would happen in January in Seattle. And they knew where I'm based, and they reached out to me and know my interests. And they said, Susanna, do you think that you could just go to this fundraiser, buy a ticket for the dinner, and just observe what you see and report back to us? And so I, bought a ticket as a regular attendee and just showed up. And, certain things were exactly as I was expecting, but I was not expecting the presence of the deputy mayor of Bothell, Rami Al-Kabra. That's for certain.
So Rami Al-Kabra, we've covered him in depth on the show. This is a guy who was scuffling with Israelis on October 7th when news was breaking of what was going on in Israel. This is a guy who wraps himself in a keffiyeh. If there's an anti-Israel event in Seattle, he'll be at it. If there's an anti-Israel forum, he'll go to it. This is a guy who, it is no secret what he has done, what he is doing, and who he supports, and yet he is the deputy mayor of Bothell. So aside from him, what other VIPs, for lack of a better word, was he associated with at this thing?
Well, there was the presence of the founder of the Reach Education Fund and all, I imagine some of their chairmen as well. And this group is really questionable for a number of reasons, according to my colleagues at the Middle East Forum and their research into their connections. They characterize REF as basically part of a Hamas-aligned Islamist charitable network that is operating within the United States. And they're very tied into a number of different organizations, including orgs that have pledged hundreds of thousands of dollars to MEF that have direct ties to Hamas-aligned charities or Hamas themselves. For example, the Reach Education Fund's activities and announcements are actually covered and profiled in Hamas media outlets. So this is a very questionable organization, not only because of who some of their partners are, but also what their activities are. For example, they basically originally started as a scholarship fund for higher education for students in Gaza. Now, part of the concern is that most of their students go to the Islamic University of Gaza, which was created by Hamas co-founder Sheikh Yassin. And Israel has identified this university as a kind of top recruiting site for Hamas and oftentimes even their engineers. Beyond that, there have been actual staffers or chairmen working at REF that have made extremely questionable and that's an understatement. I would say vile, open, anti-Semitic comments. It would be a better characterization. And this has been going on for some time. But, outside of the character of this organization itself, kind of another star of the show that were there was the parents of Rachel Corrie. Now, people in the Pacific Northwest might be kind of familiar with Rachel Corrie because in the early 2000s, she was a young, around 23-year-old woman who was killed by a bulldozer when she was doing activism in Gaza as part of the international solidarity movement, who has kind of become like a local, I don't know, kind of lefty martyr for the cause, if you will. So her parents were there and very much stood out amongst the crowd, and they got many shout outs during the duration of the event.
Gotcha. Now, Rachel Corrie, just to remind everybody, this is a woman who, in Israel, they tear down Palestinian homes if they support terror, if they were involved in a terrorist activity. And I believe that the house Rachel Corrie was standing in front of trying to get them not to tear down was one of these homes. The driver of the bulldozer didn't see her. Tragically, she got crushed by some of the debris, and her parents have become some of the biggest anti-Israel activists in the Pacific Northwest, if not in the entire world. She was from our neck of the woods, and this is something that if there's an anti-Israel event, they will be at it. So it doesn't surprise me that they were at this thing at all. At the event itself, did you hear praise for October 7th? Did you hear praise for Hamas? Did you hear any of that anti-Semitic rhetoric? Was that the kind of stuff you were hearing at this thing?
There was no overt praise for October 7th. There was no overt praise for Hamas. But what I found so interesting is that there was the characterization of the conflict was just a inherently one-sided presentation. Like it was a sole characterization of Israel as a destructor and an oppressor, and there was not a single mention of the role of Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the death of the Palestinian people. There was not even the slightest mention of any responsibility that they might have in the suffering that civilians are experiencing. It was just a completely one-sided narrative. And so that was extremely telling to me.
I'm sure. Now, as I understand it, there were some VIPs there also from Kuwait, these guys who come in and raise money for questionable organizations, and they were helping out with this event.
Yeah, so there were two very high-profile doctors that attended this event by the name of Dr. Omar Al-Tahwini and Dr. Mohammed Al-Kandari. And they are actual medical doctors, and I guess they're social media celebrities because they have a combined Instagram following of over 2 million followers. And they've become noteworthy for this work that they were doing in Gaza, especially during the first year and a half of the conflict. So they were the keynote speakers for the event, and they got, big rock star reception. And they were there to speak about their experience of going into Gaza and providing actual medical care for individuals while they were there. They said that at the time of the event, they said that they had gone 3 times since October 7th, and were discussing their experiences there.
Now, in the last few minutes we have with Susanna Rose, who's a writer and researcher for the Middle East Forum, who happened to attend this fundraiser for very questionable organizations, some which may have ties to Hamas and other terrorist organizations, that was held on Mercer Island. Tell me about the crowd. Was it a lot of Arabic-looking people? Was it a lot of Mercer Island-looking people? What are we talking about here?
So the crowd was definitely very heavily Arab. They very heavily Muslim. As a woman, I was a definite minority. As a non-hijabi, I stood out a little bit. But it wasn't exclusively Palestinian. It wasn't exclusively Arab, but mostly. There were also an assortment of Jewish people. There was an obvious presence of some Jewish allies or other kind of more lefty progressive allies that were there. And I'm curious to what extent that presence actually toned down rhetoric at the event. But they made reference numerous times at the event to the presence of members of local Jewish Voices for Peace activists or members being present at the event, which could also, I think they were maybe referring to Alice Rothschild, who works for JVP and is a local author known for extremely harsh anti-Israel rhetoric. And I recognized her face sitting there in the audience. And that really spoke to me about how they were doing a really good job of coalition building with local progressive allies to their cause.
I don't remember if it was Alice Rothschild. I want to say that it was, but I went to this event where a local anti-Israel author was speaking in Seward Park, and I remember going to this thing, and whoever the speaker was, and I'm 50% sure it was Alice Rothschild, but I don't want to speak out of turn and say it was for sure, was talking about walking from Gaza into the West Bank. And anybody who knows Israel geography knows you don't walk from Gaza into the West Bank. They're on other sides of the country, unless you're doing one of those outdoor adventure tours that the yeshivas do when they're in Israel. So you can see the kind of people that were likely at this event, between the Corys, between people like Alice Rothschild, who has written very, very anti-Israel things, and of course by people like Rami Al-Kabra, who takes the other side, meaning the side of terrorists. And it's a little crazy, the organizations they're raising money for, from money right here in the Puget Sound area. Susanna Rose, writer and researcher for the Middle East Forum, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for writing about a story nobody else in town has covered.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly was a surprise to see Al-Kabra just really bragging about his position of power and how he, brings it so immediately into his role in Bothell, talking very openly about how he uses, Gaza imagery as his uniform in his official capacity. And I certainly wasn't expecting that, and I'm glad that it's getting the attention that it deserves.
Yeah, because we know how much the Bothell City Council influences foreign policy for the U.S. government and for the Middle East. It sounds like this is a guy who's really focused on doing his job. Susanna Rose, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headline, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. And this one comes from the world of Star Wars. The Little Vegas Chapel, an award-winning wedding venue near the Arts District in Las Vegas, offers Star Wars-themed wedding packages to celebrate Star Wars Day on May 4th. The packages named Yoda One for Me and Love Star provide a unique opportunity for couples to incorporate their love for the iconic saga into their special day. That's right. Now, the Yoda One for Me package, priced at $860, includes a Star Wars ceremony performed by Princess Leia or Darth Vader, custom Star Wars music, round-trip limousine services, a Unity sand... Why would you want sand? It's coarse. It gets everywhere. A large Star Wars-inspired bouquet and boutonniere, a professional photography with 30-minute extended photo session, a video recording of the ceremony, a Star Wars-inspired certificate, a marriage license holder, fuzzy dice, very good, and accommodations for up to 18 guests. You know, I wanted my wife to do a second marriage with me on the bridge of the Enterprise at the Star Trek experience. We had been married for about a year. She said no. I understand. Like, it would have been fun for the pictures, but I do understand. So that's at the Little Vegas Chapel. If you happen to be heading to Las Vegas for May the 4th weekend, Star Wars weekend, which we can discuss on May the 4th. That's not actually Star Wars weekend. That's a whole nother discussion we will get into around that time of year. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes today. We are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life. For 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit MadronaFinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show at the Bremerton Airport on July 13th. Join KVI at the Bremerton Air Show on Sunday, July 13th. Running both the 12th and the 13th, the Bremerton Air Show is back for another year of modern military aircraft, classic planes, and world-class performers. And this year's theme is Mustang Mania. And I get to go for my very first time, and I'm very, very excited about this. So I'll be there on the 13th with the KVI booth. Get your tickets and learn more at bremertonairshow.com. That's bremertonairshow.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement, and 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show on July 13th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I am so excited for the air show. I've wanted to go every single year and never been able to before. Very excited for this. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.